Welcome, Professor Gates. So it's not Black History Month, and it's not the anniversary of the March on Washington. So why are we telling these stories again?
500 years of the contributions, achievements, and sacrifices of 42 million, of the ancestors of 42 million Americans. That's not important? Do you know that the first person of African descent landed in what is now North America in 1513? And we even know his name. His name is Juan Garrido. He wasn't a slave, he was free, and he came with Ponce de Leon. He was a black conquistador, and he was looking for the fountain of youth, just like the white guys. And he's been lost to history, except for, you know, a few specialists. And so we start with Juan Garrido, and we go 500 years, half a millennium, to the second election and the second inauguration of the first black president, Barack Obama.
Which is the story you'll be telling Tuesday night. But tell me, how do you decide, of all the stories in those 500 years to tell, how do you decide which ones to tell?
We chose things that were emblematic of larger phenomena. You could not tell the story of every runaway slave, so you pick Harriet Tubman. You can't do every riot. So in this episode, we do the LA riots. The story of Solomon Northup, which has been, so many Americans have seen in 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah.
We picked Terrence Stevens, a black man who was framed for drug possession on a Greyhound bus, has MS, in a wheelchair, and served in prison for 11 years before he was pardoned.
But there's a theme that runs throughout all 6 parts of this, and that's that African Americans, no matter how they came to this country the worst possible way, managed to create something out of nothing, whether it was culturally, historically, whether it was food, somehow created something out of nothing.
Yeah, I wanted to achieve 2 effects. One, to show the effects of black agency, the fact that our people had a will to survive. We call one episode Making a Way Out of No Way, which you know is fundamental to the black tradition, that expression. And our ancestors deferred gratification. They had no idea that slavery would actually end, but they functioned as if it would. They could not imagine that you would be the co-host of a national news program.
I couldn't imagine it either, so it's okay.
Interviewing me, a professor at Harvard University, who was executive producer of a 6-hour series on African American history, that our people would ever get to that point. Yet they functioned as in such a way as to make it possible. I wanted to create the effect of overhearing a conversation about the black experience among black people in the special way when you go to get your hair done, or you go to a barbershop, or you're in church, and people aren't worried about public perceptions of what they'll say. They're just their cultural selves, as I think of it. And I think that's what we did. And we came up with 70 stories, and they tell the tale.
How do you fill a gap that isn't being filled in the schools? Is that what this is about as well?
Oh, absolutely. I've received thousands of emails over the last 5 weeks, but the ones I treasure most are from either teachers or students. And teachers saying, already I'm using it to teach, say, slavery or Reconstruction, or the creation of Jim Crow, or the Harlem Renaissance, or the Great Migration. And why is this important? It's important because our schools shape who we are as citizens. Think about the things you learned in first grade. My country, 'tis of thee. I pledge allegiance to the flag. America, the beautiful. Your teacher doesn't say, today is citizen lesson. I'm going to teach you how to be a citizen. They implicitly teach you how to be a citizen. Every time there's a racial incident in this country, our leaders call for a town hall meeting, a conversation about race. No one has a conversation about citizenship. It happens implicitly, invisibly every day. That's where the real conversation about race has to happen. Kindergarten, first grade, every day. Every day's got to be Black History Month in the sense that our story, this narrative, has to be integrated inextricably in the story of America. And that's what we've provided in this series.
In a year when we've seen The Butler with its great critical success and 12 Years a Slave with its great commercial success, both of them, there are those who could say that we're in the middle of another big black cultural renaissance of historical storytelling.
I was around when New Jack City and She's Gotta Have It and Do the Right Thing.
Spike Lee's big moments.
Yeah, they all came out at the same time, and everyone was talking about a renaissance of black film about 1990, 1991. I think it's the second generation effect of affirmative action. One of the themes of our final episode is that, quote Dickens, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times for our people. And what do we mean by that? The black upper middle class has quadrupled since the terrible day in 1968 when Dr. King was killed because of affirmative action. At the same time, the percentage of black children living at or beneath the poverty line is almost identical to what it was the day Dr. King was
So
killed.
there's this huge wealth gap, even though we have a black president, we're
Yeah.
supposed to be past all of this.
That's right. And for those of us who were able to take advantage of affirmative action and then replicate ourselves over the years, we were able to take advantage of more access to the means of production than any other generation of black people before us,
Including telling our own stories.
including telling our own stories. And also we have a huge market, a huge group of black people who can afford to go to movie theaters, buy a ticket, TiVo, buy DVDs. And you see all these forces coming together. So I think that we are in a kind of renaissance, but it's the result, paradoxically or curiously enough, of the civil rights movement and affirmative action. We're just seeing its effect 40 years later.
Story is The African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross. The last episode airs tonight, but you can get it on DVD and online, of course. And the spiritual leader behind it all is Professor Henry Louis Gates, Jr. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.